30 seconds.
America, we stand for freedom. Though freedom is never really free, we yearn and strive for government protecting our liberty.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Right to Know, brought to you by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. I'll be your host this evening. My name is Andrew Couture, and with me is my co-host, Mary Lotze. And we have a very interesting show for you tonight. This show is entitled The Changes in the Abortion Law. As our guest tonight, we have Dr. Kerry Pound. She is a Board Certified Pediatrician, a board member of the Mass Citizens for Life, as well as a Rhodes Scholar. Thank you for coming on our show this evening.
Thank you for having me. Such a delight.
So kindly give our viewers a quick biographical sketch of your background and how you became interested in the pro-life movement.
Well, I actually have always been pro-life. I don't think I ever, once I learned what abortion was, which was probably sometime in grammar school, I immediately recognized there was another life there. And it was clear to me you cannot kill an innocent life. So I have always been pro-life, but I think what has really changed as I've moved forward in my profession and in my learning is that there just seems to be growing evidence of why someone should be pro-life and recognize the life. And particularly during medical school, as I sat through embryology courses and learned about fetal development, I just couldn't get over the fact that basically the lectures were finished for the entire development of each system by 8 weeks of gestation. And I just wanted to sort of yell out to my classmates, doesn't anyone recognize this? Hello? 8 weeks, we're done with every single system. You know, they have to grow a little and develop a little, but all the amazing turns and twists and all those cell deaths that have to happen in order for perfect development was completed. And that blew my mind away, honestly. And then when I did my obstetrics rotation, the obstetrician who was giving our initial lecture started it by saying, we are the only specialty that simultaneously treats 2 patients. And again, my ears perked up. I, of course, had sort of silenced my pro-life position in my, I don't want to be some crazy pro-life. I don't want people to think poorly of me or, not be my friend or lose their respect for me. But in that, when the obstetrician said that and acknowledged there are 2 patients there at the same time, and I've had 4 children, so I've gone through the experience of being treated by obstetricians. And clearly, there are 2 patients there all the time. There are 2 patients when they walk in the room. I'm monitored, the baby is monitored. I'm weighed, the baby is measured. The whole pregnancy is about 2 babies. And when there is the labor, a successful labor is a healthy mom and a healthy baby at the end of it. So it was very clear how the truth of the matter was that there were 2 lives, even if somehow people could let an ideology basically throw a darkness over this truth and let them ignore that. So
how did your beliefs impact your studies in becoming a doctor? I mean, were there other doctors that have the same beliefs, or were you one out of the class that had these beliefs?
I wasn't one of them, but I felt pretty lonely, I would say, during medical school. I went to a secular medical school, great medical school, but I certainly felt pretty alone in that, and I didn't speak up. And then I did my residency here in Boston, and I certainly felt alone, and it's interesting because in pediatrics particularly, we go to deliveries and we resuscitate these preemie babies, and then in the NICU, we take care of these beautiful, precious, new human beings. And to me, there's certainly a few doctors that I've come across that I'm pretty sure are pro-life, but it's kind of a funny topic to breach in the hospital setting, in the medical setting. That might sound foreign to someone who's not there, but Massachusetts isn't exactly receptive to pro-life opinion, and I probably just didn't want to rock the boat. So when I was asked to be part of Mass Citizens for Life, that actually happened because I was taking a stand for against physician-assisted suicide, and that's how they asked me to come on the board. And I was thrilled because I thought, oh, that finally this maybe will give me an outlet to these pro-life views I've had my whole life, but really have not voiced clearly. So
it gave you a voice.
Absolutely, absolutely, and some mission. There's there's things to do.
Sure, and especially in your practice, which is so related to the birth of children.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And we deal with moms all the time, moms who might be pregnant, moms struggling with a new child coming into the world. I mean, it all is a continuum of really just nurturing these lives, and yeah.
So getting back into it, without question, the abortion issue is one that has many divides. What's surprising is how people fall along these lines, except for perhaps the most fundamental of religious sects. Many individuals who refer to themselves as faithful, Christian, or religious beliefs in a woman's right to choose for herself issues surrounding her pregnancy. I don't want to re-discuss the abortion issue because most recently a very disturbing trend in right to choose seems to be becoming accepted among supporting a woman's right to choose, namely the legal sanctioning of late-term abortions up to and even after live birth.
Yeah.
So why is there such a skew to the left in regards to abortion? And I mean, these are living human beings, and they're just severing their spinal column.
Well, a few things. I think President Kennedy actually did some serious damage to the religious idea. I think when he basically came out and said, I might think this way, but my religion isn't going to get in the way of how I actually, am a president and how I make decisions. And I think that informs how people have come to view abortion. Most people, when grilled, will recognize, oh yeah, there's a baby there. But I wouldn't want to impose that on the woman. And why is that? You have to start with the woman. You always have to start with the woman, because she is the one that has the choice, but two, that is often in a very vulnerable situation. She might be in an abusive situation. She might be a single mother. She might be a teen. She might be a college student who has dreams of the future, has all her life, right before her, and she's pregnant. And okay, she made some mistakes, but this is going to derail her. And it feels, at least at the moment of learning that you're pregnant when you weren't trying to become pregnant, this is going to cost me my reputation, my studies, my job, my relationships, maybe my familial. I mean, there's so many, you have to just feel for the woman and understand that. And I think once you can understand that and articulate it, then you can also hold a solid pro-life vision, and you can say, I recognize your vulnerability, but I'm actually here to help you stand up and get stronger. I recognize you're a strong woman, but I can help you to be stronger, because this is a life, and it's maybe an inconvenient truth that there's a new life growing in you, but it's a human life. And if you can believe in one thing, all humans have the right to life. It's the fundamental life. It's the fundamental right. And if there are some humans among us who don't possess that right, then none of us really have that claim. So I think it is essential to really recognize the women and the scenario they may be in, but then to help them to see the truth. And I think you can liken abortion and the willingness to accept abortion, even though we all kind of look at it and go, ugh. I mean, people don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to recognize what is going on. But you can think about it in a few different ways, because what ends up happening is the woman is trapped, right? At least in her perception, she is trapped under a heavy burden. You might think of somebody trapped under a rock. And what something like Planned Parenthood does is they'll cut off their arm. No problem. I'll cut your arm off. You're good to go. Forget about the rock was ever there. Well, she's just been damaged. But in this case, it's not a rock, it's a baby. We're going to cut it off or cut it out. And instead, I'd rather society and all of us said, I'm going to pick up this rock with you. And this is a really difficult situation, but we're going to walk together. And I'm going to help you find the strength to do this. And I think it's really easy to stand back and go, oh, I don't want to get in her way. I don't want to tell her what to do. No, we have to be willing to get out of our safety zone and go, I can help you in whatever way that means. And society has to be able to do that. And we have to help the woman, but we have to look to the baby, to the unborn baby. And so I think it's clear it's a life. It's clear it's a person. You can use all these different philosophical arguments for personhood and all this, but it never really works, because then you end up basically saying you can kill a child, if you're going to get into rationality or these sort of things. Like, you can't get into that argument. The only thing you can get into is the moment of conception begins a human life. And so the reality is, if you have two lives, you have to recognize both. Both of them have the right to life. And if we stop doing that, if we say, no, the strong have the power over the weak, the woman can decide if that life matters. We look like we're going back in history. Mm-hmm. How can you not look to slavery and see the slave owners who are going, no, that's not a person, that's my property. No, he doesn't have the rights that I have. No. How can you not go back to Nazis, Hitler's Nazism of Germany? Like, how can you not see that and go, this is just a way to say this isn't a human being, when we all know it is. Mm-hmm. To excuse, unfortunately, and the inconvenient truth that it is a human being, and it's going to take some sacrifice on it. You can't tell a woman it doesn't. It does. It's a hard situation. It's an inconvenient truth, but it does. So with the political things, the reality is, because for women for so long, they were disadvantaged. They were discriminated against. They were one of these people who were looked on as property of men, right? So it's such a conundrum, because you have these two disadvantaged groups that we can think of, and you have to recognize both. And that's why women get angry, and you have the feminist pro-choice, radical pro-abortion at this point side that's like, no, it's my body, it's my body. They're fighting against a history of not wanting to be second-class citizens, but in doing so, they're really saying, no, we've got the strength now, and we're okay to step on somebody else, and that's not okay. Well, it's not okay.
I mean, I think we were talking before the show started about Dr. Kermit Gosnell. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk about taking the power away from women, I think you can't help but look at a Dr. Mm-hmm. Kermit Gosnell, who, for viewers who may not know, please check him out. He was the most prolific serial killer of probably the new century, because he killed so many, not just children, not just infants and embryos through abortion, but he actually caused the death of the mothers. You talk about the two lives. He caused the death of the babies plus the mother. And yet that's where our new laws, which we'll get to discussing in a moment, are really coming down to. At what point does what we used to constitute abortion before 13 weeks or whatever than that, okay, we'll just pretend it's not really a human life, and nobody really knows, you're not pregnant, you're not showing, so we can deny it. Just make it go away quickly, lop off the hand, and nobody will know more. But now he actually took it to the final step, waited for those children to be born, those infants to be born, and then decided to kill them in the most, snipping the spine, sucking out the brains, in some of the worst possible ways. Now, he's serving time. He was found, he was serving time. But what our laws are now seems that we're codifying what he did for so many years in Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the disturbing things about the new law is it really it basically takes away the ability to prosecute an abortionist at all. It's amazing. I mean, it's like we're going back in time, that you almost cannot find someone guilty who has botched an abortion.
I think before, to be fair to our viewers now, before we go any further, we should explain some of these new laws, because we're not talking any longer about what was the simple abortion. And I hate to use that term in a diminishing sense, but there was an abortion that was done in the first trimester, and for all intents and purposes, it went away. Now we're talking about aborting viable babies. So please, either Andrew from a legal perspective or Dr. Pound from a medical perspective, could we go through some of the laws briefly for our viewers?
Sure, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know, I've looked at it a little bit, and
this is the mass law that we're talking about.
This is the proposed Roe Act, they're calling it, ironically. And just as an aside, I think we can all basically agree that this is a desperate attempt, because they see the Kavanaugh appointment as a absolutely horrifying event that is going to lead to Roe v. Wade being overturned. So therefore,
on the federal level,
we are going to prevent this, and at the state level, we're going to protect this. But this is so extreme. It goes so beyond Roe v. Wade. My jaw almost dropped as I read through some of the things in the proposal and what it does to the past law that was here in Massachusetts. So even the definitions, actually the definitions are perhaps the most telling. So the prior law, the current law, defines pregnancy as a mother carrying an unborn child. Wow. We've come a long way from that. A mother carrying an unborn child. The new definition of pregnancy is the presence of an implanted human embryo within a person's uterus. We've lost mother, we have lost child, we have lost woman. Woman is gone. It's a person's uterus. Unborn child, there's no longer a definition, because we've decided we don't have an unborn child, we just have an implanted human embryo. And really some of the glaring things are absolutely no interference with this personal decision to prevent, commence, terminate, or continue a pregnancy. No restrictions. The prior law really wanted abortion to be rare. And it sort of divided it pre-24 weeks, which we would call viability, post-24 weeks. And post-24 weeks was really, no, it won't be done except to save a mother's life or when there will be grave impairment to her physical and mental health. The new proposal, the Roe Act, is saying it can be to protect a patient's, and there's only one patient, just in this, we've gotten rid of the child, so there's only one patient, right? There's only this uterus person here, and so she, basically to protect a patient's life, physical or mental health, and now we're looking at physical, emotional, psychological, familial, or age. So if you're too old or too young, that's a good enough reason to abort a baby post 24 weeks. I mean, what? Craziness. And then they talk about lethal anomalies and this goes back to Margaret Sanger in the days of eugenics. They're literally codifying eugenics, that some lives aren't worth living. I mean, have we learned anything from history? It's so shocking what is going on. And there's absolutely is gone. So in the current law, there is, you were meant to resuscitate a baby that is an abortion's gone wrong, the baby has been born alive, I assume post-viability, then there's some, you're liable, you have a responsibility to resuscitate, and it's just gone. It's just erased. It's just absolutely eliminated. And I think that's because there is no recognition that there's another child, that there's another patient.
So in other words, you still, even though the abortion went wrong and you delivered, you still just delivered a blob.
You've just delivered products of conception.
Protoplasm.
There is no other patient here. So there's nothing to resuscitate because we have not acknowledged the existence of this other being.
Going
shocking.
back to Gosnell, I mean, there were babies that were, survived, and they were just left to die while crying. I mean, there have been many reports of nurses saying, hey, this kid is crying.
Right.
And
Well, he
It
would
seems like that's exactly
make
what-
jokes. He would
Yeah.
make jokes about it.
Yeah.
If baby was big enough
To go to the
bus
stop.
stop with me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Horrifying.
one of the things that oftentimes seems to take place as women go to their obstetrician for the first time is they start getting ultrasounds, serial ultrasounds, and it appears that the process of ultrasonography or sonograms has actually produced a lot of people, mothers, looking at this as a baby and making that change happen in their mind,
Absolutely.
accepting the fact that I really am pregnant. But now in this new law, as you read it to us, there can be no
No, there's no mandate
nothing
for ultrasounds. No.
So the fact that you might have had a sonogram that you can see your little peanut and say, that's my baby. That's not
no
even
mandate.
offered now as an opportunity to, because that would be coercion perhaps
You have
under
to
the new
prove
law.
there's a pregnancy, so that might involve ultrasonography, but there's no mandate, I don't think there ever has been in Massachusetts, for a woman to look at an ultrasound. And the reason why is they choose life.
Right.
They see their baby. I mean, so I work with a pregnancy center in Haverhill, and the testimonies of the women from there are so beautiful, but so often it's, I saw the ultrasound and I recognized it was a baby. And, you know, there's no way to deny that. And we all, you know, people post them on Facebook and on Instagram, here's my baby, we're expecting, oh, this is how they broadcast to the world. Everyone knows that. And Unplanned, the story of, oh my goodness, what's her name from Planned Parenthood? Abby Johnson.
Yes.
Yes.
She left because of an ultrasound. She had to hold the probe on. She'd never stepped into a room, even though she was a director. She had to hold the probe on, and she watched as a baby basically tried to escape from the abortionist. And no, the ultrasound is powerful because we see the reality. Again, the truth, inconvenient though it might be, is powerful.
Well, one thing, just with the way you were, and I've read, you know, what the proposed changes of the law would be, and it just makes me wonder what you see a happy mother, you know, she's pregnant, and I mean, are you going to actually go up and say, oh, when's your fetus due?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a baby. You know,
That's
people
right.
don't talk like that.
Sure.
You know, when's your baby due? you
Well,
know?
I think one of the sad things, we're talking about the Massachusetts, and at this point this is still a proposed law.
Yeah.
But this has actually already been signed in many different states, not
That's
maybe
right.
this wording, but
This
other
is
wording.
extreme. This goes beyond the New York law.
But the
that we
New
cheered
York
for.
law,
Yeah.
which was just signed into effect by Governor Cuomo in early February, that was met with thunderous applause and cheers
Yeah.
that he did this wonderful thing for women of New York State. We have Virginia, where the governor actually pronounced that this was going to free up women to the point of after a live birth happens, then he and the mother will have the discussion about, do we want to continue?
Make the child comfortable, you know, make sure it's you know, quiet and safe, and then you talk with the mother to see if you want to keep it.
If you want to continue. So it's not even we're trying to prevent birth from happening. The birth has happened, and now we're trying to like put the genie back in the jar, and how we're putting the genie back in the bottle is just by...
See, it makes me wonder because the proposed changes of the law, if you have a madman that goes out and kills a pregnant woman, he gets a double homicide.
Not anymore in New York. It all of a sudden
Not anymore
changed.
in New York.
Yes.
You know, now, and if the proposed law that Massachusetts is considering, if that goes into effect, you know, somebody goes out, even if the mother wants that baby, I think it's going to be kind of hard to challenge that, to say, well, that's a double homicide.
Right.
No, no longer, because there's no unborn child anymore. It's the implanted human embryo.
Well, and another thing that I'm thinking of is we've expanded this now just not to be the life or death of the pregnant mother.
Yeah.
Now we've expanded it to be the emotional, physical, mental.
You
I
can
mean, we're
drive a
just
truck
dragging
through
it
it.
out. So, at what point will we start saying, "I don't want a boy. I have 3 boys. I want a girl."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just get rid of it. I don't want a girl. I don't want another boy. Or, well,
And that does already happen for sure, sex selection, especially in pregnancies with multiple children. So if you're, pregnant with triplets, maybe the couple did IVF and they're triplets, they often will choose based on sex. So they do selective reduction. I don't know if you've heard this term.
No.
So selective reduction. So if you have like a triplet pregnancy, the woman's at higher risk, the babies are at higher risk for preterm labor, preterm birth, and then all the risks that come with being a preemie, and there are a lot. And so the obstetrician often will encourage the woman to have a selective reduction.
Okay.
So they kill one or two of the fetuses, and that is often will be based on sex. Well, we already have a boy and a girl, or we already have 2 boys. Okay, there's 2 girls and a boy. All right, so I'll kill the boy, and maybe we'll keep 1 or 2 of the girls.
Right.
Yeah. So they do that. It's disturbing.
The hypocritical nature of some of this also is some of the people who are big proponents of late-term abortion and taking it to the extreme are also some of the same people who would be champing at the bit if they had the Inuits slaying baby seals for pelts, or no-kill shelters for animals, or they'd be marching outside a state prison if there was going to be a murderer and an execution. And some of these people, they look at those as being deaths of animals, needless deaths of animals, needless deaths of murderers, but they don't look at this as
I think
being
I
murder.
just heard that PETA in some state was going to try to outlaw the dissection of animals. By students, right? This is how we learn.
Now we'll just
but
learn
that's
on
cruel to animals. And I just
virtual.
Unfortunately, when I heard this story, all I could think of were those images that David DeLayden got when he did his undercover work in Planned Parenthood of these fetus parts being sold off to dissected to do medical experiments.
That was actually a question that I wanted to ask.
Oh, but God forbid that the students learn on animals. I mean, it's just so wrong.
So getting back to what you were saying, that when they were actually selling the body parts of the babies that were aborted for
to do medical studies,
for medical science, but yet again, you have some of the more left-wing people who are supporting this. I mean, look at the new Green Deal Act. They don't even want cows, or anything like that.
Well, didn't Representative Alexandria Cortez, didn't she actually come out and start talking about we really need to start looking at the babies we're having, that we're having too many, we're bringing too many children into the world.
But I mean, now you're running. I mean, look at China, where you can only have a select amount of children, and then, God forbid, it's a girl in China. That girl's going to wind up in an orphanage.
Right. Well, they have a very lopsided population because of that.
They're
having major problems because of the sex selection abortions.
Andrew, is our show almost over?
I believe we have 1 minute.
1 minute? Oh my Lord, this has just gone by. There is so much meat in this topic to talk about, but it's very frightening where we're going. Do you have anything that you would like to share with our viewers for the last minute?
I think try to get over the discomfort about talking about abortion, and try to write op-eds, speak to your friends, speak to your neighbors about this issue, because I think if most people understood how radical these new proposals were, they would understand it's gone way too far. And we've gone into a totally new age here when we're okay with abortion on demand for 9 months of pregnancy, literally on demand, and eugenics, and accepting it all. So I think speak up is what I would say to anybody who has a little bit of an inkling or is on the fence. Speak up, learn about it, because it's impossible to read the proposals and not be disturbed.
I would just like to tell our viewers and share with our viewers that every one of the senators on the Democratic Party who are running for president in 2020 signed on to this recent bill that said we would support this termination of pregnancy at the 9th month. And I think that's very frightening, but I just wanted everyone to know that. So Thank you, Dr. Pound.
Thank you so much.
so
Thank you,
much for
Doctor.
coming
It
and
was a
joining
pleasure
us
to be here.
tonight.
Thank
And we thank you for watching Your Right to Know and sitting in here tonight with the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. As we leave you, we want you to remember that your local city or town Republican Committee is your only grassroots organization that supports and holds dear your liberty, your constitutional rights, and your conservative values. We encourage you to join us. Why? Because to us, the GOP stands for growth, prosperity, growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people, and because we always stand for freedom, and that includes our unborn, who are people. Thank you and good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and